welcome to this April edition of 1999 Best Movie Year Ever. I, of course, am CP. You aren't. Before we go at all into the fun stuff, it's got to be noted that a tragedy happened in the month of April of 1999, and it certainly affected movie-going for a while from there forth, and that was the Columbine tragedy. I just wanted to acknowledge it because we've been acknowledging other real-life things along these episodes, and just wanted to make note that that happened then, and it's quite terrible, quite terrible, and we're no better to fixing shit. So on to the fun stuff. If you look at the April releases for 1999, you see a bunch of cult movies. That's essentially what I would say about the month of April 99. A lot of movies that certainly didn't do too well at the time they were released, but certainly have a cult following now. The first one that jumps out is Following, which is Christopher Nolan's first film. Nobody saw him coming, and with that said, nobody really went out and saw Following, so there's the first big one that, in hindsight, probably would have been a big deal. You also have Never Been Kissed, which is with Drew Barrymore, a rom-com that almost does it. I'd much rather take Just One of the Guys, although they're slightly different. If you're gonna give me non-high school girls going back to high school, Just One of the Guys is way better. Another one that was a classic for me, at least, was Go, or as I like to call it, teenager Pulp Fiction.
Are you a virgin?
What?
Come on, Claire. Answer the question. Answer the question, Claire.
Breakfast Club, I get it.
I don't know why I call it a teenage version of Pulp Fiction, because some serious stuff happens during the movie. It's just a bit more light. It doesn't seem as serious and stressful as Pulp Fiction is. There are things that happen during Go that certainly call to your attention, but nothing on the scale of trying to revive a heroin overdose. And Hal, since he's been back so many times, let's hear from Cody. He's going to tell us about another film that came out in April that I would call a...
Oftentimes, whenever you talk about like a year in film, you always talk about like some of the bigger blockbuster movies or movies that like changed cinema to a certain degree, like The Matrix certainly did in 1999. For me, when I look back on years, as far as like eras of film, it's always the movies that I can look at and immediately just transport myself back to wherever I was at that time. Idle Hands is one of those movies for me. You know, it was right before summer of that year, 9 years old. I'm right at the point where I'm starting to kind of somewhat develop my own taste as a movie fan. It has everything that I want at that age, where you have like some of the raunchy humor, you have the gore. I was always a horror fan. You have some of the actors that were coming up in that time, like Seth Green and Devon Sawa was certainly like a big name around that time. Devon Sawa, I know that guy, and it looks like a pretty cool little horror film. And you put it in, and it's like one of those few movies for me where they perfectly blend the horror with the comedy. I'm somebody where I feel like comedy is one of the most subjective pieces of filmmaking ever, possibly the most subjective, so I'm almost harshest on comedy. And it's one of those few horror comedies that just genuinely make me laugh while mixing in everything that I want from a horror fan. You've got the gore, you've got the tropes of the genre, you've got a badass like heavy metal soundtrack, The Offspring has like a cameo at the school dance. It plays on things that I grew up loving about the genre while introducing some of those modern aspects of, the pre-2000s, and you get Jessica Alba for the first time. And it's one of those really cool like time capsule movies where it harnesses everything that was prevalent and great about that time period, the late 90s, early 2000s, but it doesn't date itself like some of those films. Like you watch it today and it still hits exactly the same way it did in 1999. There's nothing that isn't funny anymore. There's nothing that doesn't land anymore. I mean, the comedy is timeless. It feels like it ages well because a lot of the lines feel improv. They feel like these guys were just having a blast making this movie, and some of these lines that are some of the more memorable parts of the film just kind of came out during that fun, just kind of came out off the cuff. You know, like the burrito scene always feels that way to me, where they're getting ready to microwave some burritos and they're already dead zombies and there's blood and gore all over the inside of the microwave where they tried to kill the hand. And hey man, you know, do we think we should clean this up a bit? Oh yeah, and while we're at it, we'll just clean the whole fucking house. Like, it's awesome. I'm glad that they're finally getting a Scream Factory release for it, because the Blu-ray release previous to that was kind of a quick grab, and then it was off the market immediately. It's just a movie that definitely makes me think of 1999.
Sticking right to it, let's head over to Emily, who's got a story about Entrapment.
Hello, thank you for inviting me onto your 1999 retrospective thing. I'm Emily from Emily's Adventures in Horrorland, and I'm also your wife. Lucky me. So in case it's not apparent, in the year 1999 I wasn't very old, so I don't have very many memories of films from that year when I was living in that year, but I can, you know, probably comment on films that came out in that year and had an impact on me later. So the one I'm going to be talking about today is Entrapment. It was one of the first thriller films I ever saw. I don't know if it's very well known or kind of obscure, but you know, I thought it was pretty decent. Sean Connery was an interesting character. Catherine Zeta-Jones was just hypnotizing, really good. And for some reason, I remembered that, you know, there's this scene where they're practicing this heist where she's got to sneak into this museum, steal this artifact mask-looking thing, as I recall. And so they're practicing with these red threads with bells attached to them, so she's got to slink in and out of them without making the bells ring. And for some reason, my brain thought that I was watching a making-of, behind-the-scenes thing, when in fact it was the movie proper. I guess I was too young to fully grasp what was going on, but I appreciate the film for what it is now. So the reason this film from the year 99 stuck out to me in particular was, oddly enough, the DVD menu, because I've tried to find this DVD menu online anywhere, or even just evidence of the DVD, scenes from the movie, anything. I couldn't find much except for the trailer. Kind of weird. Anyway, so on this occasion I think I'd finished watching the film with my mother, and it was in a darkened sitting room. I was on one sofa and she was on the other, and she happened to have fallen asleep on the DVD remote, so I couldn't get it and I couldn't turn the thing off. So for about an hour, all I could really do was try to fall asleep, and I was watching this DVD menu play over and over again. And because of that, the music, first of all, is ingrained into my mind, this very spy thriller do-do-do-do-do-dun-dun-dun kind of music. It was really good. But the main thing I remember was fucking Catherine Zeta-Jones in that PVC leather, I don't know what it is, superhero-looking spandex, I don't know. That cat suit she wears when she's slinking around the museum trying to avoid lasers. You know, that thing left nothing to the imagination, and it was just boring itself into my mind as I watched over and over again. And yeah, it definitely made an impression. I'm not going to say it's the movie that turned me gay, but it didn't hurt, I guess. My entry is so much creepier than I intended, I'm sorry. And Catherine, if you're watching, you're a wonderful actress. I liked you a lot in... Please think of one other thing she's been in. Oh God! The Chicago, that Zorro movie with Antonio Banderas. That was good. That was... Oh, fuck's sake. Yeah, so that's my experience with that movie. I'll probably be back for other months of the year, and thanks again for having me. Looking forward to the next one. Thank you.
See, that would never happen on a regular movie review series. That was just a story. Hell, it barely was about the movie. More about the DVD menu than anything. The last movie we'll be talking about for April of '99 is a movie that is good. Another movie that probably has gained steam over the years and is a way bigger deal now than it was then. Election, which I think is a brilliant film, but it holds a place near and dear in my heart because that played for a long time at the movie theater I worked at. And there's one scene that is just so out of left field. And we had this game amongst coworkers to try to say this line to each other as close as humanly possible to another employee with customers around, and oh, being a wacky teenager, it's...
Her pussy gets so wet, you can't believe it.
I think that movie cost me about 2 write-ups, if I'm correct. A couple of other films that I didn't mention, frankly, because I haven't seen these and couldn't find anybody to talk about them. Life with Eddie Murphy, Existence. All I know is it's got like a really weird bone gun thing. If you're familiar with Existence, please educate me down below. And Pushing Tin, which if you look at the publicity for that movie, Angelina Jolie, yep, that's a dime. Anywho, if you have any movie stories that you'd like to submit for, just keep an eye on the calendar and notice how quickly we're moving along. Next month will be May of 1999. I can't possibly think of anything else that came out in May 1999. If you'd like to be a part of this series, by all means, contact me and let me know and provide video, and we'll get you on here. It's coming. Next.